Okay, but let's welcome you all here. We have 3 guests tonight, and I don't think we had that before, have we? 3?
No, we had. Yeah, I think we have sometimes when we did the what happened after summer. What happened after when then we had
right. Yeah, Luca and Oliver and Oliver.
Yeah. But not many times.
Yeah, awesome, and also great to see some ex-Spotify people here, at least 2 of them here. So with that, very welcome here, Henrik Nyberg.
Thank you.
I love the new title, AI Whisperer.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear more about your background. But you're, so famous, I think, in all the extremely pedagogical and very fancy. And I'd love to hear more how you actually do these kind of visualizations, explaining everything from Agile and now lately the generative AI part as well. Awesome stuff. We also have Niklas Modig, right? Best-selling author and founder and CEO of Hubs, which you all work at the company. So I'd love to hear more about your background as well. And thirdly, we have Mattias Altyn, correct? Yeah. Also Agile coach, change agent, right? And CTPO, is that correct?
CTPO and
Chief Technology and Product Officer?
C3PO, I prefer.
C3PO, I think is better. The more letters, the better. It's the general pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've been an engineering manager in different flavors in both Spotify and
my background. I actually lived in London for 18 years. So I actually went to London in 1999 to study for a year, and then met my wife. She's Spanish. Yeah. So we decided to stay in London for 1 year to figure it out, and that turned into 18. So I want to move back to Sweden to work first for Klarna and then for Spotify.
Yes, Klarna first, right?
Exactly, briefly.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear more about Hubs, about all the work that you do with AI and Agile, etc. But perhaps we should start with, since you started, Mattias, if you were to just give a very brief introduction to yourself. Who is really Mattias? What's your background, passion?
I already started. So I'm from North Sweden, lived in Gothenburg for 10 years and then ended up in the UK. I'm a software engineer since 97. In London, you quickly end up in the finance industry there. That's the dominating industry.
That's London.
Yeah, and I worked for hedge funds, asset management firms, and I was CTO for 3 different companies. So since 2008, roughly onwards.
So really it's C3PO or
C3PO, I love
C3TPO.
that. Yeah. I have my golden suit wearing in office.
Awesome, man. And at some point you met the other guys here, or how did that happen?
Yeah, how did you meet? That's a good question.
Well, Henrik and I live not far from each other at Färingsö.
So you kind of meet at the local burger joint.
We did, yeah. And actually, our kids went to the same school then, and I knew Henrik's wife Sofia through the parent teacher.
Oh, really?
I love it. I love community.
Yeah, and paddling. Sofia's an avid kayak paddler, and I actually also have a big interest in kayaking.
Big interest. He's like a hardcore bro.
Yeah, no. I used to be able to paddle, but I haven't kept it up.
Awesome. And if we move over to Niklas, perhaps you can give a quick background about yourself as well.
All right, I'm from Stenungsund. Everyone have heard about the terrible accident in Stenungsund. Either the bridge that fell apart more than 40 years ago, or the road that collapsed a few months ago. So that's where I'm from.
Oh, yeah, right. That's nice to say it.
My background is that I studied at Stockholm School of Economics. And then I pursued into researching and being a teacher there. Always been fond of Japan, so I lived in Japan as a kid, and then I did my PhD studies in Japan and got opportunity to be.
Where came the interest from Japan?
I was into martial arts as everyone else, and I thought that was really, really fun. And I had some naive idea that I'm going to be a karate kid. So I actually went to Japan as an exchange student when I was 16. So I think that's where it started.
Was it karate or karate?
No. I had this vision that my Japanese host father, he would like train me in the garden and be this mean guy. But he played the trombone, so it wasn't really
wax on, wax off.
No, it was completely different. So I came to do some Aikido and some Kendo and stuff, but not so much.
Are you into it still? Some martial arts?
No, actually not. I was into it until I was 20 years old, but when I moved to Stockholm, I didn't continue because I felt it's a lot about your teachers, and I had amazing teachers in Stenungsund.
And how did you fall into the whole lean Toyota production system angle?
That's talking about a rabbit hole. But short story is that when I let go of martial arts, I was dating a girl who was an aerobics instructor, and the only way I could hang out with her was to take her class. So I started to take aerobics classes, and then I got caught up because that was basically the same thing as martial arts, doing hip hop classes and step up classes and so on. So once I just graduated from Stockholm School of Economics, was one of my teachers said, Niklas, I really like your moves. You should become an aerobics instructor. So I declined my offer from becoming a management consultant, and then I said, I'm going to be aerobics instructor. So with a master's degree in economics, I started to teach aerobics. Yeah. And then I thought the teaching processes are so inefficient, so I have to apply lean here. So I created my own concept called value-added aerobics, where I basically applied lean on teaching methods. And that's what I told my old professor about, because he said, "Oh, have you been what are you doing?" And I said, "I do lean service within aerobics." And then
he got hooked. What was his reaction?
No, but he thought it was interesting, and that's why he said, "Why don't you come to the PhD program and write about lean service?" So that's actually what happened.
So my question: how did you fall into Toyota production system? Is very accurate.
It's very, very accurate. No, it's true. I've never had a plan to take a PhD, or I've never had a plan to apply lean. It was just I had really inefficient teaching methods.
Frustrated with inefficiency.
No, yeah, I was just standing there feeling stupid, and I saw people feeling stupid. So how can I make them feel successful and get good workout? And then I had to start applying how to make people understand. That's a value-adding process.
And I guess you had a little bit of lean exposure from schools. So you had, that's why you thought about it, because not everybody that is an aerobics instructor would think lean and go that.
No, I have my master's degree within operations strategy. So
that fit. You applied from school.
Yeah, that was the starting point.
Cool. Wow. And how did you meet the other two guys?
Well, Henrik, since after I where should I start? Well, I pursued some research in Japan. When I started to research about lean and services, then I got the opportunity to continue at Toyota Japan and write about how have Toyota actually applied the Toyota production system in their demand chain or sales and services.
So you were working inside Toyota. You could do your research in collaboration with Toyota, right? Or
I got access through my university. So I was there 2 years. And then I started then lean was really hot. This was 15 years ago, and the Toyota Way was just published. So everyone was walking around with Liker's book and so on. So I gave a lot of speeches about lean. And then I met some dude talking about Agile. I said, what the heck is that?
Yeah, but what is that encounter? What is that encounter? That's fun. What happened?
No, but talking about Henrik, I heard about him, and then one day he said, hey, I have a really cool woman here, Marianne Poppendick. She's a lean software guru. Why don't you come over for a dinner? And since then, we have been good friends.
And the background there was that I stumbled over his book at my office. I didn't know who he was. I found, I was learning a lot of lean at the time. I was interested in it. I found his book, and I was like, this is the best lean book ever. Yeah. It was small, short, and to the point without a bunch of buzzwords. This is awesome. Oh, it's a Swedish guy. That's interesting. And I was collaborating with a lady named Mary Poppendick, who's very big in the lean world. And then she was coming to Sweden, and I'm like, I want to get these people together and just geek out on lean stuff. And that's how we started.
But what's the title of the book, by the way?
This is lean.
This is lean. I add this to the list about topics to discuss and to know more about, what really, why should someone read this book?
Read a book and write a book. This is a fascinating topic. Mm-hmm. I'm always jealous when I meet people who's published books. I like it. Yeah. But in the when was this, by the way, in sort of, we can go to you now, Henrik. Yes. So the background here, because now we're sort of getting into an intersect. Is that when you're at Spotify or at Lego, or what are you doing at the time when you guys meet or you read the book?
I think I was at Spotify maybe at the time. I don't remember.
Yeah, it must be
So it's a while back.
Yeah.
I would guess maybe 12 years back, 10, 12 years back.
It was a while ago.
So who is really Henrik Nyberg? Can you give a quick backdrop?
I'm very curious about that myself.
Yes.
I hope to discover one day.
Actually, this is why you're in this pod. It will be a meditative
Maybe it'll be an
discovery.
Yeah. I'm a very curious guy, I guess. I actually, by pure coincidence, also grew up in. Actually, I grew up in Japan, so we have a common connection there. We didn't know each other there, but when I was a 7-month-old baby, my parents all went to Japan because my dad worked there, and then so I spent 16 years as a kid growing up in Tokyo.
Do you speak Japanese as well, or
not as good as he does?
okay.
which is ironic because I spent so much more time in Japan. But I went to an American school and they spoke Swedish at home, and so my Japanese is decent but kind of crappy by now. But anyway, grew up there, came to Sweden as a teenager, decided that I wanted to be a musician. And then decided that I don't want to be a musician because it's hard to make a living off being a musician.
What music instrument?
I play bass and piano and guitar and drums, and can't decide what my.
We have so many. we have so many podcast guests. So we need to have a
jam.
A jam. We talked about this. We talked about this.
Mattias, like, there's instruments here.
Yeah,
like,
it's a guitar.
Don't tempt me. But anyway, so I decided that maybe
we
I
had
can.
more instruments before. My keyboard was here before. Now it's so.
No, but anyway, so I decided that maybe I could play music just for fun and then have something else that will pay the bills. So that ended up being programming because I like programming and computers. So I studied at KTH in Stockholm and became a computer guy. And I got dragged out into various consulting engagements while studying and was coding out in different kind of projects, typically rather big projects like big telco projects. And I was this one guy sitting there coding. And I learned very much about how to fail with big projects. That was kind of my big experience, was that
you need to fail to learn something.
Yeah, I would spend time writing what I thought was really nice code, but then everything has to fit together, and these big projects tend to fail. And I became a little bit of a cynic, But anyway, then later on, I was in my own startup. A friend dragged me. I always get dragged into startups. I don't know why this keeps happening. But anyway, I got dragged into startup, and then I had to build my own teams. And then I didn't want to fail. So I knew exactly how to not build software successfully. And I wanted to figure out, is there a better way? So I started frantically looking around. Is there any information? Because by then there was this really cool thing called the internet. So you could look stuff up. So
what year was this?
I remember.
Yeah, 95, 98. No, 98 was when we started the company. Yeah. So I started looking around and I started finding something that later on came to be known as Agile.
It's the manifesto. When was that written?
2001. This was before.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah, so there's this community of people who later on wrote the manifesto.
Yeah.
But they created the first wiki because they actually invented the wiki. This guy named Ward Cunningham invented the first wiki. And then through that community, I don't know how I stumbled into it, but they were sharing knowledge, like how work in teams, write code that tests code, work in pairs, all these really weird practices that was very different from what I had seen in the field, but that seemed to make sense. So I applied that with my teams and was like, oh,
it works.
This kind of works better. It's not a silver bullet.
It works better.
It works better.
I like that.
No guarantees. But when we fail, we would fail for the right reason and not because our process is stupid, right? Yeah. So anyway, that's how I got kind of hooked into what later on came to be known as Agile. And then gradually through my mixing between consulting and startups, it started becoming like one of my tools. Like, okay, I'm a guy who writes code, but I also learned a few things about how you can collaborate. And then more and more that became my image. And then I got involved in companies as kind of a coach and then started writing books and stuff around that. And then suddenly people were calling me something, they were calling me an Agile coach.
Agile coach.
Yeah,
wow.
They were accusing me of this. They gave me this title.
Yeah. Did you want it? Or do you like?
It was I don't know.
You loved it.
I remember how we started talking about Agile coaches, and now it's almost gone full circle. I don't want any more coaches. Yeah. I want real coders.
No, I was more like, is this what we call what I do? Then fine, it doesn't matter. I was interested in helping companies improve. Yeah. And this really was helpful. So I felt good going to a company and leaving them in a state that was better than before. Kind of.
But and your years in Spotify, are you an Agile coach there? Or are you a line manager? Or what different roles did you sort of work in?
No, I early on in my career, I developed a skill of dodging formal roles.
Yes,
so I've been CTO 3 times and decided that I'm not a good line manager. I really prefer to be that guy on the side who throws in good ideas.
Yeah.
but not actually have.
I need to learn from you because I realize this is more me.
Yeah.
Admin, no. People, person, no.
Yeah. So that's kind of, yeah. So at Spotify, I was a consultant, but I was there for maybe 6 years or so, and a long time. And most people forgot that I was a consultant.
Yeah, I know.
But I was really just a guy, an ideas guy. I was involved very early through random coincidence. I did a talk at KTH where one of the first Spotify teams was there, and they got really inspired by what I was talking about Scrum. So they started applying Scrum, and that's how I ended up coming in there as a kind of coach. Yeah. So yeah, helping them figure out as they grew from just a few teams to more people, then how do we collaborate effectively? So
were you guys there at the same time? Who was at Spotify at the same time?
Well, yeah, you left at 2015, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And then I am at 17.
Same as me then. I joined in spring of 17, I think.
Oh, you joined in 17. I left at 17.
As we probably
And when did you start in Spotify?
12, I believe.
12. Yeah, so you would have been there overlapping a little bit.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And that was an interesting case because that was a company that was kind of, in my mind, born Agile. Yeah. So I didn't have to transform them from something else. They were born with an Agile mindset, which was super fun for me to, I could affect a lot more.
And we have another rabbit hole here, the famous Spotify model.
Yeah. We have it in our list. So
I remember vividly, I've been trying to explain this. We didn't know each other, but look here, Henrik says, this is a point in time.
Yeah,
it's evolving.
It's a snapshot.
It's a snapshot. And no one read the memo.
No. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, long story short, I started getting involved in companies that, like through my writings and stuff, I was lucky to get involved in some interesting companies like Spotify and Lego and did that for a while. But then at some point, I kind of did a pivot into climate. So I started getting panicked about climate change. So I did a pivot and just dived into climate change and was involved in some startups there and made another fancy video about that. And then through another, I happened to end up at Mojang as a Minecraft developer through some really crazy turn of events.
So you have a little toe in Mojang. How long was that?
I was there for about 4 years.
4 years. More than a toe then. More like a foot.
More than a toe, yeah. So first as a coach and then as a developer and designer. And then we started up Hubs as part of that. And then
should we move that perhaps?
Yeah. And then the last thing, of course, the whole AI thing, which I guess we'll be talking more about.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the heck I did.
Switch to AI.
Guys, we need 4 hours. I can tell already.
Before we move into the topic of the origins of Hubs, can you just elaborate a bit? How did the switch to AI come about for you?
Well, ChatGPT came along as a thing. Look that way, or yes. Yeah. All right. Cool. I'm being moved around a little bit. Now I'm in a better position. So ChatGPT came along and it kind of started getting me excited. I've always been interested in AI. I did a bit of AI programming in Minecraft, but also from way back in time. I've always been kind of interested in this, and it seemed like a really cool thing, but more like a toy than anything else. But then GPT-4 came along, and when I started looking into that, I was shocked to the core. Like I realized what I'm seeing now is something that I'll never again experience in my life. So I kind of, from one day to the next, made a pivot and said, this is going to be the main thing for me. Now
I need to figure this out. We need to, and this will have so many profound implications back to team and organization.
Yeah.
I'm, just thinking about teams that are agents that are autonomous AIs next to people teams as an interesting topic in itself.
Yeah.
But I have a topic as well about the generative AI video that you posted. So let's get back to that later. And I'd love to hear the background and how that got started as well. But to the next topic, how did Hubs get started? What's the origin? Why did you come together? What's the purpose of Hubs? Who wants to start?
I think Niklas, you should start this one.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, the foundation of Hubs, I would say that maybe all of us have had a growing idea in parallel. My journey, that was integrated first with Henrik's journey and then with Mattias. My journey started in 2011 when I was working with one of the Saab companies. They were producing radar systems, and I had a lecture with one of their management team, and they said, about lean. And they said, well, we really want to implement lean, but hey, we're 1,500 people and we're sitting in different offices, and lean is a systems theory. So if this is really going to work, we need to involve everyone. So how do we do that? And then I said, hey, I know a camera guy. He could come here and he could record our workshop. So let's have a workshop with your middle managers. There were 70 people. And then I brought in the camera guy. So he got some instructions. I'm going to have 9 modules. So take the recording and record them. And after that, in the post-editing, I wanted to take away all the discussions. So each of these 9 modules, they were a little bit like first a story, then a question, then brainstorming and discussion. So very, very simple. So we had that workshop, and then we cut up these 9 modules and burned it into DVDs because we couldn't stream them. So we took all of the managers, got 2 DVDs each, and then we said, okay, now you show. You have timeline of 4.5 months. So show 1 video every second week, and show the video, and then discuss the question, and you lead the discussion. Mm-hmm. So all the managers did that. So first module, second module, and third module, and then basically all the middle managers educated 100% of the company at the same time. So everyone got the same story, same mindset. And I remember after three modules, the CEO called me, and a guy from Gothenburg, Anders, he's like, what the heck have you done, Modig? People are right crazy. So he said that we have registered 57 different improvement initiatives from the employees that wasn't asked by the manager. What has actually happened? They starting to break the silos. So he was very excited, but he said we weren't really ready for this. So and then they did a tremendous transformation, much, much faster than anyone that I've seen. And I was like, hey, this is interesting. And the outcome there was like, okay, what did we do here? By coincidence, we made the managers to own the transformation. We made the managers into expert. You know, when I take Henrik's new AI video and I show it to my wife, I get the credit because because I came with a video.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the fun part. Even if it's Henrik, I came with a video, and that's the phenomenon that I think is interesting. That all the managers, they came with a video. I'm going to show you, and they became the expert who come with the message. Mm. So we developed 70 really great managers into experts and coaches, and they felt that this is our transformation.
This is owned. Internally,
they're completely owned, and the engagement came from the managers, and all the employees were also educated exactly at the same time.
So there are many very simple rules of thumb here that I think works together that makes a huge compounding effect on this. Huge.
Yeah, involving everyone.
But that led to you sort of thinking, okay, this is apparently not everybody's doing it like that. We should think about this.
No, then I started to experiment, and then we developed, and then when it was possible to stream, then I had third-party LMS to spread videos and so on. So I was doing experiments for many years, and after some time, I realized that if we actually do this generates a lot of ideas, and then an LMS is not enough because we want to take that idea.
LMS is a learning management system, right?
Exactly, learning management system. So a simple e-learning system. So, but if you do that in a company and everyone talks about the same question, for instance, how do we decrease lead time? And you have 1,500 ideas how to decrease lead time. Then you want to take that and condense that into a strategy that you actually go from ideas to action.
So this becomes a bit of data.
Exactly. So we needed something more advanced, and that's what I felt like, hey, we need to develop something that is different from LMS, learning management system. So that's why we started to develop a transformation management system, TMS. And that was the starting point of HUBs. And that's when I was thinking, because I loved thinking about storytelling and metaphors and seeing how can we impact people. And I was thinking, who is my big idol there? Henrik. So I called him up and said, hey, I have this idea about founding a company where we are developing a software where we can involve everyone at the same time. But we're not only involving them in terms of training, we also generate improvements ideas and make sure that they can implement it in a smart way.
And what year was this?
We started it almost 5 years ago.
19 or something.
Yeah, and then we found it as operationalexcellence.com. So it was like hotels.com, operationalexcellence.com, but then we understood that that's not a good name. So then we ended up with HUPS, which is human upscaling and human upskilling. So involving everyone and build the people. So that's the simple both vision and idea behind the company.
Also fun story there. When he called me, I was in my summer cottage and he was in his summer cottage. And I got really inspired by it. It's like, we should talk about this. Yeah, we should talk about it. Where are you? Oh, you're not so far away. And so he got on his boat and just came to my house. We're sitting. So he took his boat to my place and we're just chatting. It kind of just felt an instant
All
connection.
good ideas needs to happen through a boat ride.
Yes.
That's another rule of thumb, right?
You can take over. So where did you start?
Oh, it was basically that. But I think when he called and it matched something that I'd been feeling for quite a while.
And what was that match?
The match was that I had done a bunch of, like Niklas, done a bunch of talks and keynotes and written articles, taught courses, stuff like that, and coached. But then it's me spending a lot of time on site with a limited group of people, one company.
You're the bandwidth
group.
problem.
Bandwidth problem, yeah. And if my impact is limited, sometimes I can make a big impact. Sometimes I spend a lot of time and make no impact. Right. So. But then I would put out a video, for example, the Spotify video as an example, right? And then the video goes crazy viral, and then we have hundreds of companies making big changes completely out of my control. And I'm like,
something in the middle here.
Yeah, like maybe I don't have to be standing on the forefront. Maybe we can scale this and not just release a video in the wild and just hope for the best, because that doesn't always give the best results, but also not be the bottleneck guy. And I think what Niklas was talking about just resonated with we can get the best of both worlds, kind of.
Interesting.
So there is a ways of working, methodology, organization, ways to transform, but there is also a technology part to this in order to figure this out to become productized and scaled. And I guess that's the angle where this guy come in, Mattias. Or how did you come up? Because you joined the guys a little bit later.
Yeah, six months now, right? I got a call from an ex-colleague from Spotify, Jonas Saxesson. They say, hey, Henrik Nyberg and Niklas Modig wants to have a chat with you. And they're doing a startup. And I was like, startup, no. Not really interested. But Henrik is a nice guy and I heard good things about Niklas. So, of course, it ended up being a breakfast in Henrik's living room.
No boat trip that time.
No, I came on a motorbike because I was going to drive into Stockholm.
That's good enough.
That works.
We did early morning. So I have a meeting in Stockholm, so I might as well just stop by and have a chat with some nice people. And then that kind of led to a number of meetings, and I was really not convinced at all. What that was, what I understood in the beginning was like, no, I don't think so. But the more we talked, and we met a few days later in the local golf club restaurant. I don't play golf, but Niklas taught me how to swing a club in a simulator. And we were talking.
No, that's the back problem.
Yes.
Come on, don't blame your fucking bed. Come on, in Japan.
Yeah,
that's the story you tell your wife. I get that.
It's the bad golf swing, though. And I've never played golf in my life, but that was the first and only time I had a business meeting with golf. And then we kept talking. I then kind of, well, it's not for me, but I kept thinking about this. I entered some other processes for jobs, more traditional jobs maybe. But I never felt excitement about that. But this thing kept going over in my head. And we kept talking. Like Niklas and I probably spent, 20, 30, 40 hours total. And eventually I decided, no, that's what I want to do. It's, I think it's a unique proposition we have. To be really kind of create what Henrik described, a kind of self-improving.
Can you describe what's the typical customer of HUPS?
I think Niklas and Henrik are probably best for that.
A typical customer, I would say, is a large Swedish industrial company or international company that have probably been working with some kind of improvement initiative with operational excellence or lean and agile, and they say that, hey, we really need to scale this. And then we can help them. So everything from smaller companies with a couple of hundreds and employees, but our largest customers, they have more than 20,000 people. So global companies that really want to scale training and scale transformations and with a deep thought that we want to make our employees own and do this, because I think that is there are different ways of driving transformations, but I think building in the competence into the leaders and making them take full responsibility of everything. I think that's
the leaders or the employees?
Both. First the leaders, so they can develop alignment, and then they involve the employees, because you need a crystal clear alignment. Otherwise, it won't work.
And I think this speaks to the core. When I talk about in Derax becoming data and AI ready, don't talk about the tech, don't talk about the AI, talk about owning the shit. Talk about who owns the data, who owns the tech, who owns the algorithm, and I'm super scared of this. I started calling it hero consulting. I've been doing that myself, and it's not good. When literally you have someone coming in and you're fixing stuff, and it's literally a black box for the organization, and it will never be sustainable. And ultimately, it comes down to ownership, owning your own chain, owning your own transformation, owning your own capability. So it really resonates what you're saying, Niklas. Really resonates. And I think a lot of people do it. They are using consultants in the wrong way, even.
Yeah, awesome. And we promised to get back to your book as well. What is Lean, right? Was that the right title?
The first title was actually What is Lean. Yeah. Then we changed it into This is Lean.
This is Lean.
Question and answer.
Yeah, good.
Okay, please describe a bit, what's the, I guess, core messages of This is Lean?
But since I was doing my research in Japan, I got opportunity to go into Toyota Japan and see what is their version of Lean, meaning the Toyota production system. And Lean was really, really hot at that point. So everyone was talking about Lean tools and Lean methods, and everyone was going to do Lean and become Lean. And it was both a verb and adjective. So it became really, really messy. Everything was Lean.
Buzzword party.
Yeah. What is Lean?
So, but when we came to Toyota, there were no buzzwords. They say, hey, it's about flow. It's about customer has a need. And the only thing we do is to fulfill that need in the best way as fast as possible. And we wait until we have the cash. That's the only principle that we're focusing on.
Flow.
Nagarezuguri in Japanese, and that is basically, just let the water flow. So
it's like
that's
martial art kind of training as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's one principle of the two, the flow thinking. And basically, I love this metaphor that they taught me. Like, if you put up the film camera on the customer's shoulders, how can you make sure that the customer journey is great? Or if they have a car and the car needs to be repaired, from the point when the car needs to be repaired, put up the film camera on the car and see what is happening with the car until it's repaired. So it's basically the perspective of the flow unit. Yeah. And that is applicable in every single industry, irrespective if it's manufacturing or materials, information, customers. It is about the flow. So that's the first principle. And then it's the Jidoka principle, which is basically, if you have the flow, how can you make sure that all the employees can see the flow and know what is a normal flow? And if it deviates, everyone react immediately and correct it.
What was the name of the principle?
Jidoka. So
Jidoka.
There's two Japanese terms that is the core. Say them in Japanese.
No, the first one is just in time, they call it. But in Japanese, nagarezukuri. So it's basically to create flow.
Yeah.
And then it's Jidoka, which is, it's three different characters. Self-workingization, meaning how can we create a culture where everyone knows what to do all the time? That is done through visualization. And that's why everyone knows what is normal and then can see what is abnormal. So it's a very conscious learning system.
But isn't that interesting? It's not easily translated. It's like semantics and when you have Japanese characters and how that works. And then you want to try that and put that in English words. Yeah. I can see how much more powerful those characters that sort of build this whole you have a whole spiel to explain. Is that true? I mean, like, so is it more powerful in Japanese, these two words or these two key characters?
I think it's also some, if you say, "Oh, this is yakiniku," and it sounds better, but it's basically fried meat. It's not so sexy, but it sounds good, yakiniku, you know. But it's grilled meat.
Take away the curtain. Take away the curtain, boys. Take away the curtain. I like it.
But this actually is one of the kind of Niklas things, which also I subscribe to, which is let's reduce the buzzwords and just talk about the thing itself.
I like it too.
Okay, so back to the question, what is lean then? If you were to try to just condense it to the core.
That's the two. How can a company create flow, put up the film camera on what they are producing, and how can we create a system so everyone sees what's happening all the time so they can react on deviations immediately? If it's a hospital, then you put up the film camera on the patient, and then you focus on the patient's flow, and then you want all the personnel to see, can we deliver a normal flow from the patient's perspective, not writing a referral, not sending them to other, it's the patient's journey.
If I phrase it like this, what's the opposite of lean?
Silo thinking. Put up the film camera on the machine or on the doctor, make sure that he or she is busy. Good. So we optimize his or her flow instead. Then we have the film camera on the doctor, and we make sure that he or she always have something to do. That's opposite of lean.
And
so
also,
where do we put up the film
common
camera?
model?
Very common model.
The most common model.
I mean, that I think really nailed it really well, I think.
The film camera metaphor is excellent. Who are you putting the film camera on when you're trying to optimize or try to keep people busy?
Yeah, and that's, for me, that was the connection with Agile as well.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we have a need for some kind of new functionality. But where do we put up the camera until the functionality is developed and used? And we have engagement there.
Yeah.
That's the flow. So it's the same thing.
So instead of a physical gadget, it could be a sticky note on the wall representing a feature.
Yeah.
But the camera's on that feature. And we're optimizing for getting that moving from idea to production.
That makes sense.
Awesome. I'm eager to move to the Spotify model already. Should we go there perhaps? Or is it too soon? Let's go
we're
there.
exploring different topics now. And I mean, do we actually have a theme for this? We've been trying to do in 2024, this season and a little bit last season, like, we need a good clickbait theme for our podcast. Now we have a very distinguished guest, so you're the clickbaits. That's okay. But if we flip it, what is the theme here? We are talking about hubs. We are talking about you coming from different angles here. Agile, lean, engineering. And ultimately now we're moving into an AI world. We are pivoting. But what's the underlying interesting core topic here? I think it's about transformation, maybe. How do you get flow and adoption in transformation? And ultimately, how do you get flow and acceleration in adopting data and AI? Maybe that could be one angle, or do we have another one? I
think we formally wrote the theme as the role of AI in the future of software development or something like that.
Yeah.
But I still think we should, before we go there, just take the Spotify model quickly.
No, because I think then we are building up to a theme by looking at different perspectives into this story. We're looking into a lean story perspective. And now let's look about.
The Spotify model became really, really popular, and not the least because of all your work, Henrik, as well, and the videos that I think is one of the most popular one when it comes to Agile work as well. Perhaps you can elaborate a bit more. What was the idea when you started to make that video, and just continue to describe it? What is the Spotify model?
So I was there in the early days, and I noticed this amazing culture, which was different from any place I'd ever seen. And I was kind of fascinated by it, and also many of the people around me just felt this is different. And as time passed, we grew very quickly, and it often became my role kind of informally to help onboard people who came in, especially when new coaches came in, because they're supposed to be kind of culture, help spread culture.
Perhaps you should explain that they don't have Scrum Masters in normal sense in Spotify. They had Agile coaches instead.
At the time, when it just started, they didn't have anything like that. But then when they decided to start using Scrum very early, then they had Scrum Masters. And then quite quickly, and I started coming in a little bit, we decided to, let's not narrow down too much on Scrum, because Scrum is one flavor of Agile. Yeah. So we basically just renamed the role. So the early Agile coaches at Spotify were essentially Scrum Masters, but we called them Agile coaches because we don't want to make everybody feel like they have to use Scrum specifically. Right. That was the only real reason.
And master doesn't sound good either.
Scrum master might make you ask who then is the Scrum slave, and then it gets icky, right? I'm not very fond of the term at all. No. But anyway, so I started spending a lot of my time explaining to people, trying to verbalize what is our culture. And then at the time, also the CTO at the time, Oscar, was doing a good job. And Oscar Ståhl, yes, was preparing for. He was seeing this growth happening, very fast growth, and needed to create some kind of framework for us to grow into. When you're just 2 or 3 teams, you don't need much structure. But when we're going to be maybe 15, 20, maybe we need to figure out which teams need to talk to which teams. So we need some kind of a containment structure, and then it became just called a tribe. But essentially, he was creating a structure that wasn't needed at the time, but was going to be needed. So, I'll give most of the credit to him. I was involved as a sounding board, but it was essentially mostly his work.
So Spotify model and Oscar Ståhl is closely linked.
At least in my head. But of course, the Spotify model is more than that, but specifically the squads, tribes, chapters, guilds.
So that terminology.
Yeah, mostly. But there was more to the culture. So I would say there's no one person. It was a number of people that together made this cake. Yeah. But I became often the guy who visualized the cake, because culture is often invisible. Right? Culture, I like to think of culture as stuff people do without knowing why they do it. And I became the guy who tried to make it visible. And then at some point, I think it was Oscar actually who suggested that, Henrik, instead of spending a lot of your time running around doing the same presentation, why not just make a video out of it? So I was like, good idea. So I made a video about it, and mainly for internal use, but we also figured we could put this out publicly because Spotify has learned a lot from other companies. We stole a lot of ideas, so it wasn't really original to Spotify. But so it was like, maybe we can give back a little bit by sharing what we've been doing. And so we put it out there, and that was pretty much it. There was no plan. We didn't intend to make a model or anything, but it became incredibly viral, and then actually became a good recruitment tool initially. But it was there was no plan. We were not planning to make a model.
And the whole model also, people were inspired by, this is where I would love to work, So that's how that became a recruitment tool, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's 2 things. One, it became a recruitment tool for Spotify, but most importantly, it inspired many, many other companies to change.
Yeah.
And my theory about that is, I think a lot of companies wanted to change. They were in a position where they were not happy with the current situation. And I think this one case study became the concrete example of like, it's possible to work in a different way.
Yeah.
So whether or not they do the same as we did, they got inspired by, hey, there are other ways of working. We don't have to follow the standard approach.
But this also highlights how important, but also hard it is to communicate and visualize and put the finger on something. Because sometimes we have an idea and we could kind of do it, but it's tacit knowledge.
Yeah.
It's not real knowledge, explicit. It's not done in a way that is sort of approachable, and I think that's a huge thing you succeeded with that simple video.
Well, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse. I think of it. I like to compare with Lean, that when Lean became a thing, then everyone started copying Toyota. Yeah. But the important thing wasn't the practices; it's the principles behind.
Yeah.
And the same thing there. People looked at the Spotify videos, and I had a lot of examples of specific things we did. What I think was interesting was the underlying principles and values. But it's always easier to copy practices.
Yes.
So a lot of people just be like, "Hey, we'll just do exactly what they're doing," and which
without parroting the practice, without subscribing to the principles.
Yeah, which is similar to a lot of companies that kind of do lean cargo culting. They apply the practices, but the culture itself isn't really there. They're still putting the camera on the doctor kind of thing.
What is the name of the video? You had made a lot of them. So which one?
That was called Spotify Engineering Culture. Yes. And a really important thing to emphasize is that was a snapshot in time. Yeah. So it's not intended to represent Spotify today or anything else. It was really just, here's how we worked at the time.
Was it how it worked, or was it how we wanted it to work?
That's actually an interesting question. When I made the video, I was paranoid about that because I really wanted to make sure that this is something people can feel is correct.
Yeah.
But Spotify was also very ambitious. They're always wanting to improve.
Yes.
So I finally ended up making a video that was a bit of both. It's a bit of how we work and a bit of how we want to work.
Yes.
And when I tested the content, when I talked to teams to check, is this accurate? What I typically got from any given person or leader, they would say, hey, Henrik, 70% here is spot on. This is exactly our culture and how we work. 20% is like, maybe, sort of, and 10% is bullshit. Nowhere near. But the funny thing is, different teams had different 10%.
Yeah.
So on average, my conclusion was, this is a good representation of how we work and kind of how we want to work, but not 100%. Yeah. But of course, as time passed, Spotify kept evolving. And this is the really important part, that the magic of Spotify, in my experience, was not that exact way of working. It was this culture of continuous improvement that was really baked in. Yeah. So they continued experimenting. and Mattias was there, more than me. So you could probably talk more about that.
What do you think? Was it how it worked or how we wanted it to work?
No, I actually, going back to the first time I met Henrik, I was really nervous and thought that this might get awkward because I didn't know him then and how great he is. But 3 months into my tenure at Spotify, I was tribe lead for a tribe there. There had been a lot of commotion around the tribe for 2 years. I wrote a white paper explaining why I think my tribe or our tribe should try something else, not try the Spotify model. And it was based on data and interviews and so on. So we actually went back to having more focus on leaders that were present. So an engineer leader that actually have organizational help, technical help, delivery and execution as accountabilities, being present with the team. And we also went from product owner to product manager in the team, in the squad.
So the squad had a product manager instead of a product owner?
Product manager, instead of product owner. And
what does that mean, that difference in semantics?
I will pass that to Henrik.
I'll pass it right back. Change you made. So
more maybe being a master of ceremony and standing every stand-up, trying to feed the team with tickets to do's and be more of a strategic thinker looking ahead, and taking like a product strategy.
Well, some people put like product owner and product manager in like a hierarchy and say that the product manager is above.
Yeah, pass. I for me it's more of a let's try to have the EM, engineering manager, being more present with the team, owning organizational health, which was to hire, recruit and mentor, coach, making sure that the team actually is competent. And then the second one, technical health, actually, you should know a thing or two about what you do and be able to, then you can be a good mentor, but also be able to figure out what are we building, when should we take on technical debt, when should we pay it off. And then with those two kind of levers, you can actually own delivery and execution as well, because when you can go faster. Why can't we go faster? Well, we're understaffed or we're underskilled. So that I wrote that white paper and was only intended to do as an experiment locally. And that turned into quite a big thing because my manager at the time said, hey, you should spread that to the whole Spotify. I was, oh no, I'm still on probation. And it was like a lot of people loved it and thought that was great, we should try something different. And other people got really upset. Some people got upset, but it ended up being, we got exempt to try this in September or December 2017.
And what was the big change really?
Well, we took away the matrix system. So having chapter leads that say you're a manager, your expertise is back end. You have maybe 10 up to 15 directs, and they're all spread out over different teams. So when I went, my link, I was the director saying, hey, how's it going in that squad? And how's the delivery going? And quite often I go like, I don't know. I'm not close to what they're doing.
We should just, for people that's not familiar to the Spotify model, describe a bit what the tribe, chapter, squad, etc. is.
Yeah.
Henrik's done a video about it.
All right. But yeah, so the Spotify model is first of all a lot more than just that. But I can make the kind of thing people mostly talk about, and the picture I drew. Is basically a matrix structure. It's just a fancy term for a matrix. But squad is basically the rough equivalent of a Scrum team or an Agile. It's a delivery team. Their job is to deliver stuff. But it pretty much maps to a Scrum team. 5 or 6 people, cross-functional, right, have an end-to-end responsibility. That's one dimension. That's the main dimension. Your main home is the squad. But then there's different skills in there, such as back-end engineer, maybe tester and stuff. So that's the chapter. So I may be in squad A working on, let's say, playlists or something, but I happen to be a backend engineer. So I'm also in the backend chapter and I'm talking to other backend engineers in other squads. So that's the matrix. But the difference is that squad is my primary home. So that's what squad and chapter is. And then
isn't that also called like the reverse matrix in some sense?
Kind of, yeah. Reverse matrix because the power is in the squad mainly. Yes, right? Exactly. The chapter dimension is a support structure. Yeah. But it's also, at least was also the line management structure. So my line manager would be another backend engineer in my squad or in some other squad. But that way I can switch squad without changing manager. That was kind of the idea. And then for scaling reasons, then we had this higher level container called a tribe. Based on the Dunbar's number, like if you're more than a certain number of people, you start losing connections with each other. So we don't want to have more than, let's say, 100 people or so in a tribe. So tribe would be a handful of squads, and then there'd be a tribe leader. And you were a tribe leader, right? Yeah. But then some areas such as like these chapters, like back-end engineer, you might want to talk to back-end engineers in other tribes as well. So we introduced this more vague concept called guild, which is kind of like a community of interest. Anyone interested in agile coaching would be in the agile coaching guild. Anyone interested in AI or data engineering would be in that guild. And that's really just a community of interest. That was pretty much, that's just maybe 10% of the model, but it's the one that most people talk about. And I would say in the less successful copies of Spotify model, they just copy that. So they say, you're now our chapter lead. Oh, what do I do? Same thing as before, but you're our chapter lead. Yeah, and your team, Scrum team, is now called a squad because now we're really cool. No damage done, really. Things don't get worse than before, but they also don't get a whole lot better.
No. I think the observation was that we didn't get high-performing teams because if you move people around like that, you with Bruce Tuckman and Susan Whelan's theories, so that was the kind of observation. No high-performing teams, and we also had data on chapter leads are leaving rapidly. No one wanted to internally step up and be chapter lead because they felt that was a dead end for their career. So the data we had then was in the whole of Stockholm at the time. I think it was. We hired exclusively outside. It was only 2 individual contributors that went over to be a leader. But at the same time, I think 4 or 5 had gone back to IC. So we had this, like all leaders are coming out from outside. And the thing that made me think about this was like, what's going on? Because I'm walking around all these super talented people. I'm average. Why did it take 2 years to hire someone full-time for this job? I couldn't figure it out. And I think it was like in 4 years, 1 or 2 people had actually gone from chapter lead to tribe lead. And that was the sign for me that like we have not got a system where only my limited view, where we're actually growing the next generation of leaders, that it should, in my words, should be a continuous flow of that.
I remember also that the chapter leads, that were managing people in the squads, that they really didn't have an insight either how the squads were doing.
It was hard, yeah.
How can you? It is if you have 15 directs, you have one-on-ones, 15 hours, and you're going to hire and do all that, and then at the same time you're going to understand what's going on in 15 different, but all in your narrow. I do mobile, you do back,
and also have time to code.
It's in superhuman tasks.
So we switched to engineering managers instead.
But we had Anders Nyman here. Andreas Nyman.
No, Anders
Nyman, head of search, engineering manager of search. This is now in the 2020s, but clearly product manager, engineering manager style for one domain. So now we're going. So I've been going nerdy down into the domain-driven design approaches and agent-based approaches with very, very clear ideas. So this is the stuff we're talking about now, and then you can take it into data mesh and technology and all that. But hardcore domain and thinking carefully about, how teams serve other teams. So we should have a
let's continue
talk.
Speaking about the Spotify model first.
Sorry.
Before.
Rabbit hole. I'm the rabbit hole guy, by the way.
Yes,
I love to talk.
Well, actually, I have one thing that I want to add. Since you mentioned at the beginning, you were a bit nervous to meet me, and I suspect it was because you're like, but we didn't exactly follow the model. Maybe Henrik will be disappointed.
No, I wrote that paper, right, and it was shared. I was asked to share it against my will, and then, as I said, some people I really respected and looked up to got upset about it. And I thought, like, have I done something bad here? And then I think like a week later, we met in the local burger joint with the kids. I think we were going skiing, right? Henrik's wife teaches skiing in the local ski school. And so I was like, oh shit, should I tell him? I kind of maybe gets really offended. And so I said, hey, I'm really sorry.
I changed it.
Yeah, no, I didn't change it. I just said, we're going to run an experiment. And we said, we're going to measure like NPS. We had the lowest NPS score in that part of Spotify. And then we
need to, I think, explain NPS, so Net Promoter Score, right?
Yes, Employee Net Promoter Score. How likely, we had a really low score.
But when he said that, I was just cheering. I'm like, that is the Spotify model. Right? So that's what it is, right?
The relief when you were like, oh, that's cool. That's perfect. That's the way it should be. Like,
and in fact, if you had told me we're still working the exact same way as you wrote in your video X years ago, then I'd be disappointed and like worried. Yeah. So that's interesting.
That was only my observation at that time. But what did happen actually, we did do this change, and it was like a change in the role descriptions or trying to. We never got to really formalize. A big nervousness was around, am I technical enough to be an engineer manager? That was a constant question. And it also was a lot of maybe unfair agony against Agile coaches.
But so what is really the difference, you mean, between a chapter lead and engineering manager?
It really depends on individuals. I think most of the chapter leads were excellent, and it's more like, why did those people who had been an engineer, who wanted to become a leader and took the chapter lead role, want to leave and were really unhappy? It was basically what they said. I'm just a glorified people manager now. Yes. I worked 10, 15 years to become a really strong engineer, and I haven't touched code or looked at any delivery for 2 years now. I don't like this. So, but as I said, I observed a very, very small part, 12 of I think it was 12 tribes at the time. Yeah. So I can't answer for the rest. And I heard many people say that it worked perfectly, so I believe that's it.
But do you guys have the view, the Spotify model was a snapshot in time, and that was made when? 15?
2014, I think.
14, 15.
I don't.
I think it was 2014.
And then when you left Spotify, if you would sort of summarize, because now we have grown, now we have even more engineers in America than in Stockholm, right? So how big, what was the trend in terms of organization in Spotify at the point when you left?
So what happened was that we were the first tribe, I think, to do this formally, and we got exemption, okay, you can call it engineer manager.
That was 17, right?
Late 17, yeah. It was in September I wrote this paper. We had an offsite in Stockholm with the tribal. But then we started doing this in 2019, and I was in a conference, an Agile and Leadership conference in New York in September 18, and then there was a big uproar, because then all of a sudden I think most of the tribes had done this to change, and there was a lot of really scared people, like chapter leads who didn't think they were technical enough, and there was Agile coaches that were like, what am I going to do now? So I think it was a two-brush kind of swing away from that.
Yeah, the transition to one thinking to another was.
I think it was like maybe an overreaction. I said we did it very gradually. So how am I going to make the change? Well, you hopefully as an engineer, you will not notice the change. We will do this very gracefully. But what you're going to notice actually, your manager, when you sit in your one-on-one, she will actually be able to give you valid feedback because she was there at the time when you discussed an architectural decision. That will be maybe your more than you might be used to, because your manager sadly is not present when he has 15 or employees.
So you've been really good at describing the problems, I think, with the Spotify model.
But it is also clear that Tyson Singer, who was my manager at the time, he wrote another document to help me with this, to explain that we need to have flexibility. My tribe at that time was a platform tribe. We had a fixed goal. We had long term. We weren't supposed to super size the tribe because we were going into IPO and we kept our costs stable. Other tribes that work more on the forefront of developing consumer products, they might need this model because to be flexible. So it worked for our area, we think, okay, but I wouldn't say that would automatically mean it's right for everyone.
But I think that, Henrik, I remember when I watched the video, you were quite clear, and this is lost in the memo, that you need to carefully understand the context and you need to move the context. These are principles, these are ideas. These are the principle and ideas are more important than the practices.
Yeah, well, they're principles and examples of how they were applied at this time at this company.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can add one thing though about the being dissatisfied. Like there's like a general pattern I've noticed, which is interesting. At Spotify, when we released that video, people outside were like, "Oh, this is a new religion."
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. This is Nirvana.
Exactly.
But internally at Spotify, people were always just like complaining because not about the model. They didn't notice that. Most people didn't even notice the raw. They're just focusing on delivering stuff, right?
Yeah.
But always dissatisfied with the status quo, and that's what made them succeed. And I saw the same thing at Lego.
Yeah.
I worked at Lego, a super successful company, always dissatisfied. And I kind of get the same vibes about maybe Toyota. That's I think the irony is that super successful companies maybe need the cultural element of always being dissatisfied with the current status quo and always wanting to improve. So everyone else is like, oh, those guys are so awesome. And the company themselves are like, no, everything is broken. We have to improve, which is kind of an interesting.
But that's a mindset in itself, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
That we are striving for excellence, and excellence in reality should be unattainable. We should always be.
Which also means you need, like, I had to coach people at Spotify to stop and celebrate a little bit. Pat yourself on the back, because you're always seeing the next thing to improve. But you've also made a dozen improvements, and the company's doing really well, and we're revolutionizing the music industry. Celebrate a little bit, and then let's fix the next problem. Yeah.
Awesome. And I would recommend anyone that's interested in learning more about having the proper engineering culture to watch this video, right? It's still applicable today, wouldn't you say?
I think it's definitely applicable, as long as you see it as a general example and not a specific, I think
that's the point. Think about the words, think about the messages, think about the core values here, how you need to apply them technically, sort of thing. This is
I would say it's okay to copy paste another model, whether it's Lean, whether it's Spotify, whatever it is. Copy paste, but also adapt. Copy paste, and that's what Spotify did. We copy pasted from all over the place, but then we adapted. And I think that's the main thing.
Awesome. So moving to some AI topic as well. I think, of course, Agile is super important. But if we were to move into the world of AI that we have today, and the AI first future that Google is calling it, how do you see? I think you wrote an article called something like "Are developers needed in the age of AI" or something?
Yeah, that was it.
What would you say the role of AI will be in the future software engineering field?
So I'm going to quote Kent Beck. Kent Beck was one of the early Agile pioneers. He captured it perfectly in a tweet where he said something like this: "I resisted it for a long time looking at GPT, but when I did, I instantly realized that 90% of my skills are now worth 0. But the other 10% are worth 1,000 times more. So I need to recalibrate." And I think that kind of captures it. I think software engineers are still going to be needed, at least for some near term, right?
Future.
But the role is changing radically. And it's, I think, the same for other industries as well. But since you asked about software, I would say that.
I think that's a really good way to phrase it. And if you take any kind of role, if it's customer support or whatever, you can get rid of like perhaps 90% of the normal tasks you have, but as a human, the 10% that's left that humans actually do better than AI becomes 10 times more valuable. So I think that is, so many people are calling the future of AI as being more productive when using AI together with humans. And I think that's a good example of saying you can focus on the 10% of the past, and that together with AI will be 10 or 1,000 or
and also focus more on the things you didn't have time to do that you really wish you had time to do. Yes. Now you have time to do them. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, so, another way of putting it that I think someone said, like, what happens when we get more and more powerful tools, if it's AI or anything else? We are allowed as a human species, in our roles, to work on bigger problems. So one way of looking at your role or what you're doing is actually you need to move from the nitty-gritty type problem, because that's what you give to the AI, but you need to work on the real problem.
Yeah.
And now this is the 5-10% to figure out what is the real problem.
Yep.
What is the real question to ask? The AI is not smarter than the question you ask them or the task you give them.
Yeah.
And this now becomes a high value, commodity of humans.
I think a good comparison is in the not too distant past, programmers would spend a large part of their times on memory management.
Yeah.
Just figuring out where do I put this piece of memory and what part of the, just that. And that was a big thing. And then garbage collection came along in coding, and now that's just automatic. That part of their work just completely disappeared, and nobody misses it, right? Because now we get to focus on what problem do I want to solve rather than where does this byte of memory get put. So I think this is kind of a continuation of that.
So is it like a level of abstraction that basically keeps increasing in some sense?
I think so.
So you basically are telling, some people are even saying, I use AI all the time, or ChatGPT and Gemini and so forth for programming purposes. And as soon as I hit some kind of problem, I don't do a Google search for it, or I don't go to Stack Overflow anymore. I simply ask Gemini for the proper answer, and it usually fixes it, which is super powerful, of course. But
Can I take the question? I can lead us into the top question, because I want to take the next topic, because now we've had a conversation that is essentially the core theme of the conversation has been organization. It has lean, and what that is all about is agile. It is how you changed. So giving the understanding that we need to focus on the 10% rather than the 100% sort of thing, that's where the human impact is in the 10% of what we're doing today, but that 10% is 1,000 times more important. Where does this leave us on how to organize in these topics? Where does this leave us in how to think about teams and how to think about that? And we can. Does it change anything? I mean, like we have AI, we have data scientists under the AI manager. Yeah. We have different disciplines. Is there any change? In Spotify, little change. If I compare to Scania, that I've been working quite a bit with, they're fairly mature. And then other companies where there's a big separation of technology roles versus people, business roles. I mean, like they are even further apart in the distance. So where does this lead us on the path of organization? Can we elaborate on that?
Henrik and I had a whole morning talking about it, actually.
Yeah.
You want to, or shall I?
When GPTs became available, I created 2 virtual. We have a fantastic team we hired now in Stockholm for Hops. Yeah. And we had a legacy system with a platform. So I created a SQL Sarah. And she's our
SQL Sarah.
SQL Sarah. She knows everything about our schema and the domain and so on. So
you pushed what data in there?
No kind of sensitive data. It was the schema, our domain, what are we doing? So I uploaded everything I could there, and actually worked quite well. I can ask Sarah about how should I get this information out, and then I also created Analytics Anna. So we have 2 team members that was Tesla. Can we add AI team members to the team? It was more of a fun thing to try. The rest of my colleagues was excited as I was, but I kind of, that was my first dip into that. And Henrik, we talked about this today in our.
I think what's happening now, what's going to happen more is that looking at a development team is that it really will be your colleague. Yeah. In the sense that now a lot of teams are doing, like you mentioned, I have a problem, I'm going to use ChatGPT instead of Google to solve it, but not really changing anything about how they work. But I think, what's happening now is we're starting to get into AI integrated into the development environment. So now you can not go to ChatGPT, but you're typing something right into your code, and they start changing your code in place, which is another level of productivity. But what I think is interesting is when you give it autonomy. So yes. I think what's starting to happen now, and I think it's going to explode really fast, is the notion of having an autonomous team member. So at your daily stand-up or whatever, people are talking about what are we going to do today, and then the AI chimes in and says, I put up 5 PRs just now, the last minute, because I found a few bugs that I think I understand what needs to be done. So here's 5 PRs, please, and if, basically autonomously fixing bugs is low-hanging fruit. And then maybe someone at the stand-up says, listen, this bit of mess we made last release in this part of the code, do you think you can take a stab at cleaning that up? Sure, I can do that. Done. There's a PR up now. Anything else you want me to do? Right? That's going to become normal, surprisingly fast.
So more autonomous agents that helps up for one to clean up perhaps the code and also come up with issues that you can find in the code and PRs as in pull requests.
Initially, but then of course at a later stages it will be we're at our design meeting, we're having a discussion about something, AI is listening in the background, being quiet. And then someone says, or then suddenly it chimes in, hey guys, wait a sec, have you considered GDPR for that thing? Oh yeah, tell us more. And then it becomes really a team member. But that itself doesn't change the structure so much. But what I think will happen is, if you take Agile principles, for example, things like working at cross-functional teams, shipping often, I think the principles are staying the same probably, mostly, but the practices I think are going to be just turned inside out and upside down. Because why do you need to have a full cross-functional team? Normally it's because you need all these different skill sets in order to deliver. But now we have these models that know everything. So I think, just guessing here, that in the future we're going to have very small teams, 1 or 2 people plus an AI model that knows everything, but you still need the people there to take responsibility, to give feedback, to decide the prompts, to own the context. So person plus AI is kind of where I think the magic lies.
So the new team becomes maybe we've been hypothesizing that we need to productize the way we work, and the teams that we build in the future are product sized. And in this perspective, then product size can be 1 or 2 guys because the rest is done by the.
But we've been speaking before about are the roles. I think in Spotify we had so many more increasingly specialized roles that we had. You're a Java database specialist or whatever. It becomes more and more specialized in the type of role that you have. Perhaps what you're saying is that cross-functional teams of the future will not have the need for so many specialized roles because each person can be increasingly general with the help of AI.
I think what I imagine is, and this is just speculation, but also a bit of observation, is smaller teams and then more teams. Because I think the best companies will be the ones that don't just fire people. They will AI empower their people, and then you can achieve a lot more. So you have smaller teams, but more teams. Each team is 1 or 2 people that can be a lot more generalized because they have the AI. But then you still have specialists, but they're not in any team. So let's say I have a database specialist. He's a specialist. His job is to make sure the different AIs are behaving. Yeah. He'll go prompt the AIs. He'll help, and sometimes a little more human supervision is needed. He'll jump in there. But for day-to-day work, they won't need that human specialist. He'll become a bottleneck.
So to use the team topology book kind of terminology, it would be more enabling teams that have specialized skills and go and help other teams. Is that fair?
I'm not sure if that's a term, but I think we're moving towards a future where we have these small teams that can do very many different things very fast, and then specialists who come in at specific moments to complement or tweak the AI models, essentially. Yep. So the job of the human database expert is to cultivate AI database experts. The AI already knows more database stuff than he does, but he knows more about the context, maybe.
I'm testing an idea. We've been looking at Derdax into, thinking about agent. That sparks us. Yeah. Wait a minute, we can go back and research, and we can talk about agent-based modeling. And it's a huge field of research around agent-based modeling and understanding agency. And ultimately, hypothesis is that you can understand an enterprise as agents, as different, like you can have you can model an enterprise, an organization as agents in relations to each other. Now, the benefit by going down that route is that now you can start thinking about, who is the booster and who is the reacher, who is helping someone else to do their job. And in this sense, you get to a slightly different understanding for how we want to organize, which is much more sort of ecosystem, agent-based cybernetics. It's like we're looking at complex system theory kind of stuff that is sort of fueling ideas that basically, if we look at the organization in this way, I can actually put an agent artificially here, but then I need to have these other agents, human, here. What do you think about that whole, to start exploring,
I think to raise the abstraction level a little bit, I gave some examples of what I think is going to happen, but this is really just guessing. But one thing I am pretty sure of, though, is that things are going to change a lot. So I think the mindset people need to have in the companies is all the knowledge we have about how to organize human work is based on based on assumptions. And we need to question all of them.
The assumption, the heuristics,
the rules behind. Why do we have departments? Why do we have managers? Yes. Why do we have companies? Why do we have teams? Everything needs to be revisited.
Actually, this is what you took my topic up one abstraction level, that the rule of thumb for how to organize, that's what we need to question.
Yeah, and just go, and some things may still apply, some things change. And that just means that as a leader, you just need to kind of take a step back and be willing to challenge things a lot more than in the past. Yes. And that's going to cause organizational change. You'll need to find a suitable pace, not change too fast, but it is going to change, and you got to kind of be ready for it. And whether it's going to change in the direction I said or some completely different direction, I have no idea.
But I think the underlying truth, the profound truth you said here, there are heuristics, there are rules of thumb that we have learned in university, or that we have, learned by experience in our companies that needs to kind of be questioned. Like we have models how we think. All models are wrong, some are useful, is George Box's statement. And now we need to really question which one are now useful still and which one is radically anti-patterns.
Yeah, because humans are still humans. We're the same. So some things are going to stay the same, but some things are going to be very different. So that's just...
Perhaps it's time to just move to another topic as well, perhaps connected to this. And
let's go.
Because hubs.com, I think, has as one of the core themes of self-improving organizations.
Yes.
I guess it's related a bit to this, how you organize actual companies as well. So can you just elaborate what you mean? What are really self-improving organizations?
First of all, it's about improving, and I think if we elaborate a little bit on that first, and going back to the Agile discussion here, why I'm thinking a lot about how to use, or AI discussion, how to use AI. I mean, if we go back, since I was in academia for 15 years, we are drilled about defining what is a good theory. And one of the best theories of all time is survival of the fittest. And survival, that was what Darwin wanted to explain. And he explained it with the animal that is fit. And from a theory perspective, we talk about, we have a dependent variable. That's what we want to explain. And we have independent. That's basically what do we do in order to manipulate that one. So fitness, the most fit animal was the one who survived.
Or they were the fit enough animal.
Exactly. So going back to lean here, and this is a little bit longer story to come to your answer, but I think one of the problems with lean was that they focused too much on being fit. And they lost the understanding about, well, what are we trying to improve? The survival. So that's why it became a verb, it became an agile. Yes. And then that's what happens with agile as well. Oh, we have agile everywhere. So it's all about being fit. And we forget a little bit about what is survival.
What is purpose? What is outcome?
What is the purpose? What is the outcome? And exactly. I can see here a little bit. Now we have done that with lean, we've done it with agile. Now we go all in AI. And it's the same thing. It's nothing about survival. It's the being fit. It's being agile. It's about being AI.
Yeah,
it's about being AI.
Agile. It's kept the A and the I. Yeah.
So what is interesting here, when we talk about agile and productivity, then we add an aspect to it. Well, how can we use AI in order to increase productivity? That's a very interesting question. Or how can we use AI in order to decrease lead time? That's also really interesting. And that's when if I ask ChatGPT, how shall we apply lean? Then I get a bullshit answer because lean is undefined. It's very, very blurry. But if I ask ChatGPT, how can I decrease the lead time of a process within heart surgery? Then I get 20 crisp answers about exactly what type of practices to change in order to decrease lead time within that certain context. And now it starts to become interesting because then I have the survival plus AI or whatever it is. So going back to your question, self-improving organization. For me, I think it's about improving. That's the survival of a company. Self-improving, that is definitely kind of a choice. How do we improve? And I think that since the world is not so functional nowadays, I mean, my wife is from California. She's applied for Swedish citizenship and it takes years. And when she moved here, it took 22 months to get a visa. So we had to move to Norway, even if we were married. And I did a cancer diagnosis 7 years ago. It took 6 months and I almost died just because I thought that I was going to die because I have 3 of my best friends died in cancer. So there's a lot of things that is happening here in the world that is not so great. And going back to what lean is, it's about, or agile, it's a system theory. So if we need to improve, then we need to involve the system. And then we can definitely not say self-improve. Yes, then we need to involve everyone so the system can self-improve. If we don't involve everyone, then it's impossible to self-improve since we're not involving the system. So self-improving organizations is organization that can improve without an external support. They have built that capability, the capability building capability, so to speak.
So I tested. I used a lingo when we were in Scania that this is about data and AI innovation. It's about taking the financial side of Scania, loan and leasing, and repositioning as a fintech because it has to compared to how it worked. And we use the word, we need to build the engine, we need to build the muscle in order to understand how we become better at continuously improving or innovating whatever the direction of the new transport ecosystem that no one really knows how it looks like. For me, you are using a different lingo and semantics to talk about we need to build a machine that builds the machine. I came to exactly the same conclusion. When we talk about data, we have the old school way of transformation. This is as is, this is the to be, this is the gap analysis. How can you do a gap analysis on a completely galloping target in terms of productivity frontier? You can't. You can only build a machine that can build a machine that can adapt. And all of a sudden now we're moving in a paradigm where we go from economies of scale and efficiency to economies of learning and adaptability. And this is the core topic. How do we build adaptable companies? I think that's what you're talking about, right?
But perhaps also we have a world. Sorry.
It's time for AI News, brought to you by AI8W Podcast.
Awesome. So we have this middle section in the middle of the podcast where we take a small break. Not always that small, but we aim to make it small, where we just speak about some of the recent news, and then we get back to the discussion we just had.
Cool.
So
it came about when he was ridiculously moving fast in terms of new things being released in the world of AI by the minute. Even the Sam Altman debacle by the minute, what is this? Yeah.
So who wants to go first? We have a couple of huge stories, of course, happening, but I'll ask the guests first, I guess. Do you have a story that you want to start with, or should we take one, Henrik, me, or Goran?
I think the funny thing today was the Elon Musk OpenAI fight.
Do you want to open that, or should I?
Yeah, well, it was...
you stole my news piece, but let's go here first.
No, you do it.
No, you do it. I prefer you to do it, Mattias.
Cage fight? Not this time, or?
I start, you finish.
Yeah.
No, the whole thing about the lawsuit and Elon's response was basically, if you change your name, I will drop the lawsuit and change it to closed AI.
No, but let's give a bit of a background to this as well. So it started with Elon Musk suing OpenAI, and Elon Musk actually was one of the co-founders of OpenAI to begin with in 2015 or something, and he left in 2018, I believe, because he thought the company was moving in the wrong direction and becoming increasingly for profit. And now he's suing the company for saying it is not developing AGI for the good of all mankind. Instead, it's moving to a for-profit organization as a subsidiary, basically, of Microsoft. And this is kind of interesting because then OpenAI came back and said, oh, well, we're going to disclose all the emails you sent to us, Elon, where you said, well, you should go for profit because that's the only way you really can develop AGI. And there were a lot of letters where Ilya Sutskever, which was one of the co-founders as well, and other people, Greg Brockman, etc., said they spoke to him and said basically they should go for profit. and now Elon is suing them for going for profit when he said they should. I mean, it's very much a double standard in some sense, at least when you listen to what we've seen so far. But I think what you said, Mattias, later is the best tweet of all, or X of all. Can you just say it again? It was such a good thing.
No, you take that one.
I just saw it on the way over here. I thought it was funny. It basically, in that, the response from Elon was basically, if you change your name to closed AI, I will drop the lawsuit. So basically, you're not open anymore. You're
so we can give him that. He has humor.
Yeah, but humor. I did a little bit of I thought it was interesting. So someone on YouTube obviously had found the document. What is the lawsuit all about? And they had like a 45-minute breakdown, read review of the actual lawsuit. So what is it actually that Elon is suing for in detail? Or what is his objective or strategy here? And you kind of see it's like a couple of different main things. So first of all, obviously trying to argue that I paid money and I put $44 million or whatever it is into a non-profit approach. and therefore the investment I made has now been used for a different purpose. So this is one angle. I'm not saying that it's double standards for sure. I get that. Second one he's saying, which is very interesting, he is highlighting or the claim in the lawsuit is sort of trying to highlight that, well, when you now have licensed, what is it that you have licensed? You have licensed what you had, which is not AGI. So he's sort of trying to put a wedge in and say whatever AGI is coming out of OpenAI potentially is not part of the licensing. So there's nuances here. And then one of the final topics, which is quite sort of remarkable, is that he refers to, I don't know if you know what this is all about, but he refers to what was leaked as the Q-star approaches. And to even put Q-star is about, now we're talking about the developments in OpenAI that presumably has something to do with much more sophisticated, much closer to AGI than we think about. But it's like quite remarkable that in a formal legal claim, he's referring to Q-star.
Especially since it's just a rumor, right?
Yeah, so maybe it's, that puts some fuel to the fire of that rumor, doesn't it?
But he also says that his own approach, the X.AI thing that he's building, that have the Grok with a K chatbot in it that is deployed on Twitter or X, is supposed to be open. But it's not. I don't see any open science on that. I don't see any open model on that. How is that open? But I think, if I were to try to steelman his argument, what he's really trying to say is that he wants the AGI to be available for people and not locked into one company. But in what way is XAI that? It's locked into Twitter or X, and OpenAI then potentially is locked into Microsoft, yes.
I think this is more a strategic move. I think it's a way to divide and conquer or I don't know. What do you think? We don't know, any one of us, of course, but what is your take on that?
I used to think of Elon as a very rational person, and an inspiring leader. Yeah. That changed after he bought X. And now I think he was a very irrational person, so I don't really try to make any sense of what he does.
Exactly. That's a good one. All right.
Well, if nothing else, it's good entertainment for all of us. This is better than any soap opera.
This is the best soap opera we have had for years. What else? Any other ones?
Should we take?
Do you have someone? If you don't, no.
I guess I just kind of think it's interesting with the latest Claude models. Basically GPT-4 has been the king for quite a while in terms of capabilities. Nobody has really gotten near in terms of what GPT can do as a general model, GPT-4 that is. But now I haven't used Claude myself, but I've seen enough data from other people to indicate that, it seems like GPT-4 now has a proper competitor. So
can we contextualize Claude? What is it? Who is it?
Claude is another model. And I believe it was a breakout group of people from OpenAI that broke out and created their own model.
And from Google and from
other places, So help me out with the data.
But it's a Silicon Valley thingy.
Yeah. So it's basically an alternative to, and it hasn't been as capable. It has had its own strengths, but in terms of as a generically useful and capable model, GPT-4 has been quite alone on the throne for quite a while. And now it seems that there's leapfrogging happening, which I think is good. So now they've released 3 models with different levels of capability. That's also good because you don't always need the Rolls-Royce super expensive model for everything. But they released 3 models. And the most expensive, fancy one seems to actually be a proper competitor, maybe even exceed GPT-4. And the other ones, but yet you can also choose to use cheaper, faster model when you don't need to have like a Rolls-Royce. So I think it's good that GPT and OpenAI isn't alone on the throne.
It's really good because the concentration of power, I think, is one of the most dangerous things that we can have in the future where we potentially have AGI and the AI divide that we have spoken about so many times. So it is really impressive. It seems still to be lagging potentially on the vision part where Gemini is still in the lead, but from a texture point of view, to actually break and be taking the lead of ChatGPT and GPT-4 is really, really impressive and really good that someone is competing with them. But that makes you also think, how long time will it take until OpenAI come up with the next model? So
I think it's gonna be leapfrogging, right? Every model is gonna be, oh my god, they just beat this model, and then
And actually, it's a bit more expensive than OpenAI's GPT-4. So
yeah,
I think
about
it's like
twice. Yeah, almost.
yeah, or
1.5,
50%.
yeah.
50%.
All right. Another news. I want to do a tidbit, a small one, and I'm going to lead into it. But of course, it's an Anders topic. There's an Archive X publication that came out this week, and it's highlighted, and it's called "The Era of the 1-Bit LLMs." All large language models today are in 1.58 bits, so potentially a lot more energy efficient and cost efficient. So we are now talking about there will be so many evolutions on how we think about and doing this. We are so far away from an end state in any of the stuff we're doing. And here we now have, how can we make it a 1-bit approach? Could you help us, Anders?
I think you spoke about when I wasn't here for last week, but
used a little bit, but I think it's worthwhile talking with you.
What is the 1-bit approach? I didn't understand.
Yes. Yeah, okay. So basically, instead of having the traditional FP32 or 32-bit floating points, or going to FP16 that a lot of models are using in mixed mode, going to FP8, only using 8 bits in floating point, or even using 8 bits for integer mode, which is even faster than the floating points. And there are even like 4-bit integer models that are just using, integers instead of floating points. Now they have a 1-bit model. And the really weird thing with this, it's not really 1-bit because it had -1, 0, or +1. These are the only 3 possible values that a single neuron can take, or synapse, if you were to be correct. So the parameter can take -1, 0, 1. So if you take a log of 3, it's 1.58 bits. Anyway, the really strange thing with this is that they achieve the same level of accuracy as FP16. So using only 1.58 bits, they achieve the same performance as 16-bit models. And then significantly lower amounts of memory and significantly faster from a time perspective. This is like
any negatives? Was it only positives?
I haven't seen any negatives. And one other positive thing is that when you go to this kind of -1, 0, 1, when you do a matrix multiplication, which is basically what all these kind of large models do, multiply like a vector with another matrix, they move from actually having to do multiplications to only additions. So you can just add up the numbers. You don't need to multiply, and that significantly reduces the complexity of the computation as well. So it's significantly faster, and then achieving the same performance. It's like magic. It must be something wrong with it, but.
Kind of like, what's the catch?
But this is interesting now, because we're having innovation in the technology on so many different abstraction levels. So now when we're talking 1-bit up, we are going really hardcore down into how we understand what a neural network is and how you can load that into bits. And that has, of course, huge implication, because all of a sudden now, that means that you are very much closer to getting something on the edge. Like we are talking about Gemini, right? We're talking about how we have the large language model and we have the one for the phone. And we are getting very close now to where we can have a large language model driven operating system or something like this. So which is once again completely rethinking how you code, right?
Yeah.
Completely.
And it's also, if we connect back to the previous story and or the first story with Elon Musk suing OpenAI, what they argued a bit in the beginning was that they only asked for like $100 million, and Elon Musk said you need to at least raise $1 billion, and basically the compute is too expensive. So I mean the personal cost is not the thing. The thing that really makes the AGI approach really expensive is the compute.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to really reduce the compute expenses that you have is super important, and also to make these kind of large model available for non-tech giants, the superscalers.
And then take the CO2, take the whole energy efficiency, climate topic, where this is going to be a massive problem when we think about where this is going, of course.
Yeah. And I think this will be a trend for 2024. We will see the models not just growing and growing. They will continue to grow, of course.
But the innovation happens on many abstraction levels for many different problems.
I'm not like some people ask me because of my background with climate change stuff. Like, what about the energy costs? Like, which is of course a major issue. But I'm actually not so worried about it because this is where all the interests are aligned. Everybody wants to get the costs down. They're expensive. They're slow. So all our systems are aligned towards bring the cost down. So I think they're going to keep coming down.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah. So in the end, what do we call it? Is it Moore's law or whatever? It's going to apply here too.
Yeah. But of course, then you have to factor in that, sure, the energy cost is going down, but the usage is going up. So, it is for the near term going to be a problem.
But it's an interesting one, right? And it's a little bit like it's the big politics down to the little bit, the one bit problem. Interesting. Yeah. Do we have another one or do you want to add?
Did you have anything, Goran? Or?
You don't have a mic today, Goran. So.
Okay.
I have a question to you guys.
Yeah.
What is the best AI news for a person that doesn't know anything about AI?
This podcast.
No, but understand. I didn't know. I'm like everyone else. I don't know so much about AI, but until ChatGPT, that was the first real news for a common person. Like, hey, I can start using this, and now I can even show my friends. And even if I'm super beginner compared with you guys, I can still show off for my dad or for some friends. That was news. What is the next thing that will change my behavior as an amateur? What would you say?
I think one thing that I usually speak about when I give public talks is, and Sam Altman say the same thing, Google say the same thing, but I'm going to repeat it anyway because I think it is very profound. And it's connected to the story we had before, how do you do self-improvement in a company? And any person or company that is using AI will become significantly more productive, and they will overtake other people or companies that are not using AI. So the AI should be seen as a significant productivity boost for a person or for a company. It's not a replacement for a person or a company, but it is a significant productivity gain that will overtake other people and companies that do not use AI. So I think any kind of leader, manager in any company that does not realize this, it's just a matter of time before they will be overtaken by other companies.
Yeah. But to answer your question, how will the normal person, because there was like, we've been talking about this for years, and we understood more, a little bit like shit. We got this aha moment that a lot of the media put out there to the most people. I had that aha moment a couple of years earlier, right? But of course I couldn't. What happened with ChatGPT was profound. And your question now is, when is the next thing? And how will we as commoners, if you want to, I don't know, that's not a good word, but how will people who are not involved in the industry experience the next? Will it be a next bump? What is the next bump?
When will the regular person change their behavior due to AI?
Yeah, so I have one.
But I think there's a couple of things to think about here. What you have experienced now is that we've been trying to improve in organizations for a year, but it doesn't really fly. What happened with ChatGPT is they create a user interface that allows you as an individual to play around. And basically right now at your fingertips, we can increase our productivity as individuals, as persons. The next problem is, of course, that in order to have real productivity gains, you need to take that individual productivity gain and put them into systems or systematically as organizations. And now we see the first movements on this that is sort of hacks. It's really hacks. It's the RAG, how people do this stuff that you can do individually, and they kind of fix it a little bit. They haven't changed the underlying process. They haven't changed the underlying operating model. They are sugarcoating what you're doing with AI. So one big leap now, or which will not be a leap in the same way, will be sort of moving into these systemized approaches where it's not me as an individual only fundamentally getting in productivity gains, but it's the system in the organization. And now what is it that we talk about then? Then I think it's the era of AI autonomous agents. So basically now we have a transformer model or something that can help you automate individual tasks, like one simple small task. The next problem is, of course, we want to give a little bit more abstract task that the AI needs to plan and sequence. So the simple task, like I want to order a pizza. And that is actually, if you're going to do that as an AI agent, it needs to go out on the internet, it needs to find the pizza, it needs to order it, it needs to secure that it gets home. So this is a sequence of steps that the AI does. So the next major profound aha will be when it's a little bit more general. And we will call that.
But I think it would be really dangerous to tell companies that are not in AI today to say, start developing autonomous agents.
Yeah.
That would be horribly bad idea.
Scary idea.
So
Scary idea.
Start by, because it will fail. It will be like the original chatbots of customer support from 10 years back when they thought they could do it, and it will fail.
What Anders is saying is you can't jump the gun. You need to learn by doing.
The main thing that we can do as a company or person is to get enhanced, is to augment ourselves. And that is the best way to start using AI. And anyone should not do anything else.
Get your hands dirty.
Until you get that done properly first.
Get your hands dirty first. And then when you get your hands dirty, it will evolve. And the evolution will be faster than we think. But what was remarkable with ChatGPT was that it was like, from a mainstream point of view, it went from one plateau and it just went to the next plateau. What is the next plateau? Will we see that again? Maybe around autonomous agents. Maybe now, we don't know what ChatGPT is going for. Are they having Q-star around the corner? Is it a major leap now in that you can give?
So let's get more philosophical, perhaps, in the end of the podcast. And we have so many more topics we'd like to ask our guests.
Just add my quick one.
Yeah, please.
About the next show-off moment.
Yes.
It's going to be, you're in the couch. I'll do that so I can look at you. Hello. So you're in the couch. You put on Netflix or whatever, and you ask your father, your friend, like, what series do you like? I kind of like Breaking Bad, right? Cool. Would you like to see something like Breaking Bad? Yeah. Would you like anything to be different, or do you think that was perfect? Now I'd like to have a bit more humor in it. Okay, go.
Prompted.
And now it just generates it in your face, and then you're stuck in a sofa forever, and you all starve and we all die because we're watching too good stuff.
Binge watching your own.
But just looking at Sora, the latest video generation, it's just 1 minute. But I think that's going to be one of the big thing that affects normal people, the ability to generate content instantly.
That's a good one.
My take is that we talk about our Hubs product, how we're going to incorporate AI, and we talk about invisible AI that you won't notice it. It will be there in the background. It will be very powerful, but you will not feel intruded, or it will be something that just enhance your whatever you're doing. So I'm more of a I think. What's your thoughts on Rabbit R1?
We were going to talk about it.
Okay, sorry, I'm doing your punchline.
No. That was not a news, but I was leaning into that and trying to understand what's the next big thing. And here we have an AI phone or LLM phone. I don't know.
Did you order one?
Not yet. Have you?
Yeah.
You ordered it?
I did, yeah.
You couldn't help it.
Sorry?
You couldn't help it.
No, I'm a geek. I need it.
Yeah. Oh.
We can close the news topic, I think, and we move into because we already moved on, I think. But you were referring, maybe for the listeners who doesn't know what we're talking about, you were referring to the Rabbit 1, Rabbit R1.
I think so.
Yeah. What is that?
I think you can do a better job.
No, I think it's a hard time explaining it, but it's a phone that is not a phone, that is really driven by a large language model, and you kind of stick it on top of your own phone. And someone explained it to me. I have all these stupid apps now, and we get bombarded. We have hundreds of apps. So you want your agent that basically you can say order a pizza, and then he will figure out which app to connect to and do the work for you, whatever it is. So it's sort of it's like a chat, it's like an agent to chat, it's like a device, right? Yeah. That you can chat to, and we'll see. How did you understand it? I just
you ordered it, so you just ordered it.
I'm a sucker for cool gadgets, but I just watched the demo and thought that this might be the next big thing that Niklas asked about, and I just want to try it early. And
but I don't
really understand how it will work in my daily life yet. Standing talking to my phone in the street, I don't know. We'll see.
The good thing, of course, is the change in interface that we will see now. I mean, both for programmers, but also for the Rabbit one, to just speak to something and make it do stuff. It's like the faked video from Google for duplex back in 2019 or something, if you saw that. And you could tell it to just order me or make it a booking for my hairdresser and find a good time for me. And it was faked, but still it was a cool idea. Now with Rabbit one, it's supposed to, you just can speak to it and say, please order a Uber or taxi for me, and it will do the work for you and get it done. And of course, that's a big change, and it's similar to programming, I guess. I mean, some people say that the future programming language will be English, and that's already true today to a large extent.
Yeah.
And this kind of change in interface and way that we work with machines will change a lot in coming years.
And sometimes you don't want to program in English. Sometimes you want to program in code because you want predictable results. So I think there's going to be space for both.
Yes,
right?
yes, agreed.
If you want creativity and intelligence, then use a prompt. If you want predictable results, write code or make a prompt that writes the code for you.
Exactly. Yes. You can combine the two, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember back in '95, around the time I also started that, we talked about the next generation languages you don't gonna write code anymore. It's the drag and drop and all that. But
it never really took off, right? No. Like the level 4, 3, 4 languages.
I love to get into the awesome generative AI video that was going viral like crazy as well. Perhaps you can, Henrik, just describe a bit. What was the thinking to create it, and how do you do these kind of videos? I'd like to just understand how you go about actually making a video like this.
Right. So I guess that's 2 questions, maybe. Yes. So maybe in this particular context with that video, I hesitated a little bit because there's so much information overload right now around AI. So I wasn't initially planning to make one. What can I add to all this noise? But then at some point I felt when I talk to people, when I'm doing presentations or workshops, I noticed that people are thirsty for a high level summary because there's so much information that they get more confused by all the information. So after a while, I just decided I went back to my summer cottage, blocked off a week essentially, and just decided that I'm going to put together another video that just makes this clear.
How do you make it? Do you make it yourself, or do you have someone who makes it into? Or what programming? What applications are you using practically?
It's handcrafted. That's the irony in it. I made this AI video, but I mean, it's all handcrafted. I just draw on a tablet and record my screen.
Actually, is it so? Because I think there are sort of ways of doing that, but this what we're looking in your videos. You have drawn it.
Yeah, it takes forever.
You have a very nice handwriting,
and it takes a long time.
And I'm not as good at drawing as the video might make it seem. So I have to do a lot of retakes. Like
and then you like stop motion on the different.
No, I just record and I draw. And I'm like, crap, Control Z. Crap, Control Z. And then after 15 Control Z is like, I managed to write Einstein sitting in a chair, and then good. And then I just save that.
But then you can draw. I mean, Henrik, you can draw because your small little drawings, they are nice.
Oh, yeah. No, it's just that, a real artist would do that instantly. I need to do it slowly and with retakes.
So he's just being humble. He's an amazing artist.
Yes,
because
very humble. How long did it take to actually make that video?
I actually tracked that time a little bit. It took about 60 hours.
60 hours.
But a large part of that was figuring out, obsessing over every word I'm going to say.
Exactly.
Because it's compact. It's a whole day course essentially in 18 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I spent a long time obsessing, counting every word. Because I know how many words I speak per second. I want the video to be max 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. I failed. It became 18 minutes. But my goal was 15 minutes. And I spent probably 2 days working, 2 effective days, which corresponds to a normal work week.
Yeah. And then you have the manuscript first.
Yeah. So I obsess over every word and I count them until I get to a point where I got my message across with the fewest possible number of words.
Yes. Word count per minute.
Yeah.
And now you then think about what are the visualization that will flow naturally with this.
So then I grab various, typically snippets from my various presentations. Mm-hmm. So when I talk about this, I'll probably show this thing. When I talk about that, I'll probably show that. Sometimes, so I put it in a slide deck actually, the manuscript. And so I cut in, I do some clip art. Sometimes I ask GPT to generate something. Sometimes I draw a little sketch. It's super ugly, but each page in this presentation is essentially what I call a chapter, which is about 1 minute of content.
Yeah, because you can feel it, because when you're trying to break down, watching the video with a nerdy eye, then you feel the chapter.
There's a structure. So every chapter is on the manuscript is a slide, text on the left side, and just a bunch of sketches on the right side. But then I know what am I going to say, roughly what am I going to draw when I'm saying it. And that's about half the time, just doing that.
Yeah, to get the whole flow. This is a little bit like the storyboarding.
Yeah, and that only works because I've done a presentation 40 times before.
Yeah, exactly.
Practicing with the audience. So I already have all I know what works.
Yeah, so the background then it starts way earlier, because if 60 hours is bullshit,
60 hours is only the production of
this
it.
is the production of the actual stuff, but because you have groomed what is this originally a 1 day generative AI? You know, how have you sort of made consultant money on that sort of, you know, what's the background of the content?
But you have given a lot of lectures.
I've given lectures, talks, in lots of different contexts, written articles.
And the whole full thing, or typically parts of it?
Parts of it.
Yeah.
So this is putting it all together.
Yeah. Cool.
And for people that's interested in what we're actually speaking about, they can search for generative AI in
nutshell, yeah,
right?
It, yeah.
Yes. It's amazing. If anyone doesn't have an understanding what generative AI, I would really recommend. Yeah. This is probably one of the
best that you can do.
Videos.
Best comprised 18 minutes on the landscape.
I will try to ask ChatGPT to make a pedagogical video about X in the style of Henrik Nyberg.
This is actually, I want to talk a bit about this because this is funny. People ask me, how did I use AI in this? I used it for basically only 2 things in this video. One was fact check. Because I prompted GPT and says, I want this to be factually correct, but also very simple for normal people to understand. So I can't oversimplify, right? But I do want to simplify, but not oversimplify, because then it gets too incorrect. So it helped me say, you know, when it said, will you use metaphor? This metaphor here is very useful, but it's also incorrect, like too incorrect. That was one thing it helped me with. But the second thing was I prompted GPT and I said, the most important thing for this content is I naively want to reach both the experts and the beginners. That's normally not possible. But I decided I want to reach both beginners and experts. Probably fail, but I'm going to try. And GPT was very helpful there because it told me you'll lose the experts when you simplify it this much. And it said you'll lose the beginners when you go this advanced.
So you had that as framing prompts that will sort of help you balance.
Yeah, so simplify a little bit more or make it a little. So I added some things that are just for the experts. I showed an example of of a research paper. I popped up just for a few seconds to emphasize one point that I was making, because I know that the expert would realize that, Henrik knew about that paper. I'm not making stuff. So little things just to make sure that I catch both. And the funny thing is now when I read the comments, I feel very happy because I get comments from people like, I'm a teacher at a grade school and I didn't know anything about AI. And now I get it and I'm teaching my kids and my class and they get it. Thank you very much. I'm going to spread this to all teachers. And that just warms my heart. Yeah, and then the next message is, I'm a university professor in machine learning and I'm teaching students and it's like, can I use this in my course? I'm like, yes. I got both. Wow. And I don't think I could have done that without help.
Oh, what satisfaction. Cool.
Awesome. And the time is flying away here. And I think we've spoken a lot about like organizational changes that AI will bring and how to do that in a lean and agile way, etc. But perhaps one aspect that we haven't spoken about is more, how will it change the products? I'm not sure if that's something you are focusing on, but one thing that we have seen, at least the tech giants doing, is simply add a language model to each product they have, to like Copilot, to Windows, to the web browser, to the Office suite, to Workspace in Google. Adobe added it to all their products. It's simply like an assistant or a Copilot to whatever product they have. Is that something that you think is a good way, or see that AI will be used in the future? Or how do you see product changes, or how should people think about product changes in a world where we have the AI to help us?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think we talk about invisible AI.
Yes, you said that.
Yes. It should be something that is in the background. It's like a butler in the corner of a dark room that come in and help you and disappear. Hopefully we can, what we're building now, we will be able to utilize this.
How are you thinking about implementing AI in your TMS? Have you thought about it yet?
We're kind of talking about it. We haven't started doing that yet, but it is in that context.
Can you build a butler, a TMS butler?
Well, we have two leading persons within their field. Wouldn't it be great to have these people
avatar, Henrik Nyberg,
at your table virtually, but not being annoying. You're not being annoying, but as in something that's there to kind of nudge you in the right direction.
And also maybe find patterns. Simple things like if a customer is using our platform, they're consuming a bunch of content, they're inserting lots of improvement ideas, things they want to improve. That's a lot of data. And then if our system with knowledge, plus with all the knowledge that language models already have, we can provide some tips like, hey, this problem that you're having, would you like to have some ideas for how you can solve it?
Yeah.
And then so it can provide just ideas.
Yeah, you can imagine like I think this is some of the problems with learning management systems or content management systems. How the fuck do you organize the information? Because people have different routes how they want to go through the material. I mean, like we have different user personas. What's the journey we are following here? So one way to do that is basically, can we guide it? Can we make it more conversational in style of learning? Can we have a knowledge graph underneath? So because the way you can, when you talk about the different dimensions of becoming data AI ready, organization, practices, team, leadership, there are so many tangents and different roles has different problems. And then you have the temporal problem. I'm early in the project. I'm late in the project. I'm going down in the ditch. So you can imagine there are so many ways that you could want to question and prompt all the content.
I think it's interesting to think about how can you use AI in a product without taking away self-fulfillment from human individuals.
That's good.
Because, going back to the example with Saab, we were able to ask a question to 1,500 people at the same time. And if all those 1,500 people answer a question and they come up with 3 IDs each, that's 4,500 IDs. And from a cognitive perspective, it is when I come up with something, that is the process when you create engagement and ownership. But if my wife say, hey, Niklas, don't eat the semla, I say, what about you? You don't eat the peanut butter then? It's like, I don't want to get a tip from her. But if I say, hey, babe, I'm not going to eat semlas, and I feel so proud of myself. So it's the process of coming up with the answer. So going back to this 4,500 IDs, I don't think AI should be asked, what shall we improve? And then we could say, hey, we have 10,000 IDs in 1 second. Let's skip the DVDs because you are so slow and stupid. AI is not. But if we could take 5,500 or 4,500 IDs that people have ownership and say, hey, can you just categorize this and package this in a way so we could see what are we collectively thinking that we should improve, then we have a product that AI has packaged for us, but we still have ownership. Like I was part of that.
But this is profound because it goes all the way down to the first question when using AI you need to answer. What is the objective function? What are you trying to achieve? Mm. Going back to fitness versus survival. And if we really understand that, then we can answer what AI should be used for and what it should not be used for. And I think we can fuck this up big time if we're not careful now.
Yeah, if I don't have an ownership of an improvement idea, it doesn't matter. I know that I shouldn't eat the semla.
If that's the first principle, then what can AI do?
Exactly.
But if you lose the first principle, you lost the war.
Exactly.
And this ties in with the kind of what has become somewhat of a mantra for me, which is that AI and humans together, that's where the magic lies.
Yes.
So if we completely outsource the AI to just run the improvement, I think it's going to happen, really. It's not going to have the context. It's not going to have the buy-in.
I think the ownership
and if we just let the humans run the process, well, we're kind of slow and we don't know a lot of stuff. But if we combine it, so people are driving the change themselves, but they're AI supported. So then they can get a spontaneously generated video as inspiring as a Spotify model video, adapted to exactly the problem they're trying to solve. Now it's like, you own the problem, but here's a bunch of inspiration. And then maybe we can get that magic.
AI supporting humans, I think that's the way to go, so to speak. So I think everyone should be encouraged to try to do so. Time is flying away, and is it time for the final question, you think?
I mean, like we like also to have a bit of a conversation on more macro philosophical questions. We have already kind of touched them a little bit, but I think because we've been like a big question we talked about, what is the future of organization? Literally, we actually went there. I love that. But if we kind of go from there and go even further out in the stratosphere, what are the key topics we would like to ask these guys? And do you have a specific one?
No, I like to take the normal kind of philosophical question.
I don't know if for people who have watched the pod, we have like a standard ending question that it's like you're doing a research on this. You're building up
an empirical research.
We have an empirical research going on.
Yes,
but let's do one more question and then go there.
Okay, sure.
And my idea here was a little bit like, I think at this table, and I was thinking a lot on Mattias actually. I think there is a contrast in how different companies, depending on their legacy, have stepped into Agile and now AI, focusing on the fitness rather than the survival. And I have definitely seen a difference talking to a digital native, where, as you said, you split into Agile, and they were there. It was just about improving. And then I have worked with a lot of different companies with a very successful and proud analog history, with a lot of dogma, I could call it, but I could also call it learnings that made them successful, how they should organize. So could we sort of summarize or give our sort of pet peeves? Where do we go wrong in organization or in this topic? And what is sort of the first principles we go right? So like sort of condensing down the conversation we've had today. And I was a little bit like trying to contrast, I've seen this work here. I've seen in all the traditional companies, they're kind of struggling with this. Not naming names and all that, but could we kind of go there? Because I think there's a vast experience around the table here.
So what is the question really?
What can we contrast, what some of the digital natives have done and maybe what some of the more traditional organizations, they don't have that background. So maybe they are thinking right or wrong about this. So I'm trying to find out the sort of the major blockers and pitfalls that we see where people go wrong, and the major principles that is actually important. And it's a little bit like a summary.
Super big question.
Super big question. I said that. Macro question.
I think if you take like a date like Spotify to other companies that don't come from there, it's the thinking of, everyone needs to start doing something in the digital space. But if you come from a non-digital native side, you will think project. It's like I have a requirement, I'm going to deliver it at a certain date.
Now you got me. So you are saying product over project.
Yeah.
Please.
Exactly.
Like one. This is one.
And that
Good.
Most people who work in those organizations that haven't had a software product mindset, that's the shift you need to focus on.
I like it.
And once you're going to get thinking like that, then you can probably start catching up with the digital native companies.
Because that becomes the first principle. If we haven't left the project process type era and gone product, none of the organizational logics make sense.
No. Okay. And you will never be done. It's an infinite game. You need to continuously improve your product, understand what your customers and people you're serving need.
Okay, so I think this is what I wanted. So please, can we go from project to product thinking more? Okay, this is your view. Do we have any others like this? I think you said it before. Focus on the survival rather than the fitness. I think that's a profound summary. Focus on the objective.
Yeah, I think it's when something becomes really hype, we over-focus on it. I don't know how many 100 times I've gotten the question, Niklas, our company are having two big initiatives. It's digitalization and lean. Which one is the best one?
And what do you answer?
Lean, of course.
No. It's this is just that we dig into hypes. First it was lean, and then it was agile, and then it was digitalization. Then we have OKR, and now it's AI. Hallelujah. I wish that I could go back in time and just take away the word lean and say, okay, here we have an area where we talk about short lead times. Add knowledge to how to short lead times, or create amazingly safe factories. This is the most safe factory that we have ever created. What do we do? So what are the things that we want to achieve?
But this rant is beautiful because it's really, we are going into hype cycles on the fitness topic of fashion rather than being precise to what we really want to do and be concrete.
My best story is when I was working with a hospital, the fertilization clinic, where couples come and they can't get pregnant, and they had 40 different KPIs that they were measuring with the quality of sperms, amount of sperms, quality of eggs, amount of eggs, and so on. And if I go there and with my wife and we are not able to get pregnant, I don't really care if I have slow sperms. it's not really what I care about. I want to get pregnant. And that's what they come up with. So they changed all those 40 KPIs and they say, we have one KPI, and that is baby take-home rate. Meaning, which couples have a baby to take home? Yeah. That's the only thing that drives customer satisfaction. So I think every company should ask, what is our baby take-home rate? Yeah. And how can AI help us increasing or decreasing that?
Love it.
I mean, that's what it's all about.
To Elon Musk, in his SpaceX vision, he says, every decision I take, if I should change a screw in this way, change the engine in that way, is being decided based on, will it get me faster to Mars or not? Yeah. So thinking about the grand vision and the real goal that you have.
The real objective.
That is really what you should make every decision.
Same with Tesla, right? With the time to eliminate the last fossil car.
Yeah. Right.
Fossil fuel car.
Yes.
All oriented around that. I think it's super motivating when you find those metrics, I think.
But here we have two first principles. Project to product as a fundamental principle to think about why we organize wrong. Focus on the core objective. Get rid of all the fucking fluff and go and be more precise on the objective. And now, Henrik, do you want to add anything to that?
I wish I had just one, but I got three.
I'll give
you three. You can pick one. How about that?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay, it's just things that I keep rediscovering as this is really important. And one is experiment. Yeah. Just as a company, experiment with the way you work, experiment with your product. That seems to be just a key thing, regardless of everything. Just experimental culture. Awesome. The second is visualization, visual management. Make stuff visible, whatever it is. People just get smarter, and even AI models become smarter when they see stuff. So make things visible, especially the things that matter. Yeah. Right? What's between us and increased baby take home rate? Yeah, exactly. So I'll explain and you give buzzwords. Perfect. And the third one is of course also stolen from Toyota, respected people. Right? But at the end of the day, people that are motivated and happy do a better job. And even with AI models all over the place, it's still people in the loop.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? We talk about tech, and no one seems to reflect this is a social technical paradigm. It's people using tech. Yeah. It's the value in use we want to get out of it. Yeah. And all of a sudden we talk about tech, agile practices, that this is a technology where's the people?
Yeah, and if they're not inspired, if they don't care about your KPI or your vision, then the tech is not going to be, it's not going to help.
So experimentation, people, and
visualization.
So do you have a favorite leader, favorite CEO of a company that you admire and think this is a role model for how someone should lead a company?
And why is it Niklas?
Yeah. No, Niklas, he's sitting there.
Before you can think about that, but I have to comment what you said about respect and also about the values. I mean, one reason why I love Henrik is that before we really knew each other, I was working with an oil company. They really wanted us to help them to become more efficient. And they said, do you know Henrik Nyberg? And I was like, yeah, of course I know him. I really didn't, but I had his number. So I called him and said, Henrik, this oil company, they want us to help them. And he said, what type of company? Oh, they're a Norwegian oil company. And he said, yeah, I can help them for free. And I thought, you can? Yeah. If they put their company into bankruptcy. I don't work with that type of companies. Click.
I didn't click, but yeah, right.
No. But you actually said that, and I think that is one of my. One of the situations where I loved you, because being driven by true values. I think we need to bring that in, because how do we use AI without the human values?
Well said.
Awesome. So this was kind of a little bit of a wrap up I was going for, and you gave it a goosebump moment. Thank you very much.
And a lot of good learnings there. Okay, so for the philosophical question here, imagine AGI is coming. Either, I think OpenAI, they released or they leaked this document saying they have a plan that in 2027, they will have AGI in place. Ray Kurzweil says 2029, other people think in 10 years, 50 years, or never. Anyway, imagine AGI is here. What do you think the world will look like? It could be either in two extremes. One extreme is, of course, the dystopian kind of nightmare that we have in Terminator, Matrix, etc., where the machines are trained to kill the humans. And the other extreme is the utopian future where we have a world of abundance. We have no need for energy. Energy is free. We have fusion energy, fixed everything. We have, the medicine is awesome. We have cure for cancer. We have educational systems that are, amazing. We have no need to work if we don't want to. We don't have to work 40 hours a week anymore, and so forth. And we're free to pursue our passions and creativity in different ways. That's another extreme. Where do you think on a spectrum we will end up when AGI will be here? If we start with Mattias, perhaps.
I hope for the latter.
Yes.
But given all the terrible things happening and expanding in the world right now with the war in Ukraine, I'm fearing for the first. I read the.
But do you think you think we should be scared of the extremes, or do you think there is going to be somewhere in the middle? Or
we don't know, right?
No,
I read the Life 3.0 this summer.
Yeah, I read it too this summer.
And that's kind of scary.
But it's interesting how it does the different scenarios,
yes,
right?
Exactly. And those scenarios in the book is kind of, they're plausible.
But we're talking about Max Tegmark's book, Life 3.0. And now for anyone who read it, I'm trying to recollect. Were there any of these scenarios that you thought was more plausible?
The whole thing about being able to trade. I used to work in the finance industry, and like the algo trading is kind of never. But maybe it's something smart enough will come in and really tip the scale. I don't know. I have no idea. But and the scary thing will be we wouldn't even realize it until it's already there, right? It will be very stealth until one day we realized that wasn't actually a real company. It was just an AI with some people.
Yeah. So one of the scenarios that Max Tegmark does, he's like in the introduction of the book, he's doing like a little short story, which is like how an AGI takes over the world, and the core topic is a little bit like it's stealth.
Yeah.
Like people don't know that the AI is doing it in such a way so people are thinking they're working for companies or they're dealing with companies, but behind it all, it's shell company on shell company that ultimately they're So it's a science fiction,
Yeah.
But okay, what about you, Niklas?
How close are you closer to the utopian or dystopian future? If you were to just put, some kind of
looking at the history of mankind, sadly, I think it is a risk, and we have to deal with that. I think Henrik has some things to add on that, how we could maybe do that, but we need to be mindful about it. Yeah, for sure.
Niklas.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that the good will win, but I mean, it's like my friend. He built a pool, and this summer his daughter fell in the pool, and it took him 1 minute or so to see her, and he jumped down and brought her up, and she was okay. But he said, it's the worst and the best moment in my life because I felt the feeling of losing her. And all of a sudden, all the problems that I made up weren't any problems. And I wish that the world can get into a situation like that, where our daughter falls into the pool and we think that she will die, but she doesn't. With AIs, we could see what it could do, but it forces us to become really the good dad. That
like that
so I really hope that will happen. But
a scare.
We need the daughter to fall in the pool, and we haven't happened yet. What I can understand.
No.
But I hope that it doesn't take 20 daughters until that happens.
Therapeutic event that will teach us a lesson.
No.
Yeah.
And what about you, Henrik?
I kind of choose the path of optimism because it's too depressing to not. I put it this way. We didn't eradicate humanity through nuclear weapons. We've had them around for 80 years. We should be gone by now. But we haven't. We managed to not blow ourselves up, which is quite amazing. We had some close calls. I choose to assume that we're not going to blow ourselves up with nuclear weapons. If they do, then I probably won't be around to miss myself. So by just assuming things are going to go well, if they don't go well, then whatever, then that's just too bad. But I assume that things are going to work out for the good, and I want to do as much as I can to help that happen.
Choose the path of being an optimist. That as well.
Well, also realizing the risks, I guess, is what it boils down to.
I like the combination of choosing the optimisms, but not being naive.
Yeah.
Not being naive. Yeah.
It's like assume the best and then do everything you can to make that
what
happen.
do they say? Yeah. We hope for the worst, but we hope for the best, plan for the worst, kind of thing.
But in practice, what I think is going to happen is, this technology can give us utopia and it can give us dystopia. In practice, the pragmatic side, I think we're going to get a bit of both.
Yeah, we're going to get it.
I like what Sam Altman is saying about this. He has changed his view, I think, in the last 6 months or something. But what he's basically saying, of course, it will be a huge impact on society, but it will not be as big or as profound as some people think. It will be some kind of slow process, not a fast takeoff potentially. But it won't perhaps be as extreme as people think. I hope he's right, but who knows?
I mean, there's this core question, that Max Tegmark explores in the book, which is quite interesting. When we get to the point of AGI, is that going to be a very slow evolutionary path, or is there a real singularity with something really takes off in minutes and hours? And I think the most pragmatic understanding of it is that we use speculation, but I tend more to I guess we passed AGI 2 years ago. I'm not sure it's going to be.
It's the same
So
here.
ChatGPT was a huge stepping stone, right?
Yeah.
Was that AGI? No. We're going to have several like that on the way.
I think it's a continuum.
There's a continuum, but it's going to go faster and faster. So it's just going to be a blur, right?
And I said many times before, I'm more afraid about the stupid AI that we have today. When we actually do have proper AGI, I will be feel safe. But
if it's
really
well done.
scared about the time until we get there.
Yeah,
The fuck ups on the way. Yeah,
a lot of false summits in mountaineering you talk about. When you see the summit and you come up, that's actually the next one, the next one.
Yeah.
We're going to be like that.
Awesome. So many interesting discussion. I hope you can stay on for some after work, where we have even more interesting discussions and speak about stuff off camera. That will be, I think, very, very interesting. So thank you very much, Mattias Altyn, Niklas Modig, and Henrik Nyberg. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.